Hey everyone, Mr. Happy here, and in this video I wanted to discuss the idea of Red Mage being added to Final Fantasy XIV. Now, this is a video I said I would make a while back, both when I did my Samurai video and with the Blue Mage video, so apologies for not getting around to it right away. Really, the big reason behind doing this video is because of the potential job teaser that popped up during the 2-year anniversary back in August. This yearly anniversary, known as The Rising, which is the name of the in-game event, had Naoki Yoshida with an in-game character. This character was thinking out loud at a few points and talked about a few future job choices. One was Samurai, which I covered pretty close to The Rising's anniversary event, and the other was Red Mage. So in case you've been living under a rock, or at least a Final Fantasy rock, and maybe this is your first Final Fantasy game or your first MMO, Red Mage has been one of the longest requested jobs since the game came out back in 1.0, alongside Samurai and Dark Knight, really. Whether people played Final Fantasy XI or were just a fan of really the earlier games in the series that utilized the job system more, the Red Mage has been a longtime favorite. It's a job known for pretty much being a jack of all trades, and then some. It's usually able to cast white magic, black magic, and then it can manipulate those types of magics to create new skills such as elemental weapon enhancements, as well as supportive or debilitating spells. It's become capable of so many different roles, which is part of the reason why it's been so hard to implement up to this point. I can't find the interview because Yoshi-P does like hundreds of them, but quite some time ago Yoshi-P mentioned that while he wants Red Mage, he's also afraid that there's no way to make it not be overpowered. So pretty curious to see where they're going to go now that the name is starting to get dropped. So I think no matter how we look at the job, it's going to need to have a new outlook on how it's designed, which is fine, as long as it keeps its core identity. We've had to do that with a lot of jobs before this, so I don't see why it should be too much different. So let's cover a few things. So it seems the Red Mage often has tools that cover 2 of the 3 roles, healing and DPS. Their DPS tools are usually a mix of melee range and long range abilities, using some black magic spells as well as enhancing their attacks with end spells, or spells that add an elemental affinity to their melee attacks. Now I know some 11 players are watching this and going, but Red Mages could tank too. Let's be real, that was pretty much a solo thing, and occasionally you could do it on things like primals or other small fights. It wasn't like a mainstream thing. Yes, Red Mage is a tank. Yes. No. No, no, no. So at this point, there are 3 directions we can take with the idea of multiple roles in mind, and I'm sure this is nothing that's unfamiliar to you guys after my last few videos regarding this. The first option is to make it just one job, but make it sort of like a melee DPS support equivalent of Bard and Machinist. The second option is a hybrid job, and the third option is the skill tree system. I actually want to explore number 1 first, not just because it's chronologically the first one, but because it was kind of where I saw the job going for quite some time. The idea of it being a melee-esque Bard is something that's not uncommon in the community and is pretty well supported. I remember reading a Reddit thread proposing a skill set for like a fencer class that goes into the Red Mage job to bring them down this sort of spell sword path. Before the more recent mentions of skill trees, like I said, this is pretty much what I considered to be the most likely fit for the job within the game's paradigm. A spell sword DPS capable of some unique supportive skills at the cost of some DPS through things such as cast times. This allows players to not only get the sword-based DPS that they wanted, but with a little bit more flair and a fancy hat. Some things have changed since this initial speculation though, such as the extra job system making newer jobs start at higher levels without a base class, as well as the level cap increasing and talks of new systems for the game. So I'm actually guessing Red Mage is not going to fall into this single job paradigm, although if they are able to fit this, I would support the idea of being that spell sword DPS. With that, let's move into possibility number 2. Hybrid jobs. Now the hybrid job idea is not something that is just speculation really. Yoshida presented this to us way back during A Realm Reborn as a concept that eventually, instead of having 1 tank, 1 healer, and 2 DPS per 4 people, we would have something like 1 tank, 1 healer, 1 DPS, and 1 hybrid. Now this wasn't just some idea that he was spouting out. He seemed to speak about it with the utmost certainty that it would happen one day. He says, quote, "Once we add the hybrid role, you'll be able to have 2 players from each role for a total of 8 people. That's a pretty forward statement. That does not sound like it was something that was just kind of rolling around the noggin. That sounds like something the development team was planning. But it seems that in later interviews, it's moved away from that idea, claiming that the biggest problem is that hybrids are either too strong because they need to be efficient at both the jobs that they're being a hybrid of, or they're going to be completely underpowered for the same reason, because you don't want to make it so they're more powerful than the jobs actually dedicated to those roles. Yoshida seemed certain of it then, but alongside the fact that the Red Mage was his favorite job and it fit the hybrid role, but I doubt we're going to see this happen, to be honest. I think the hybrid role thing is an idea that probably got scrapped. I would be really, really surprised to see it. So that leads to idea number 3, the same idea we used in the Blue Mage video, skill trees. Skill trees, to me, seem like a certain addition for the 4.0 expansion, even just looking at recent job discussions. The videos on Samurai and Blue Mage that I did spoke about assigning the jobs a role and how they could theoretically fit into 2 roles with the ability to switch. Though I did pick one role I'd like to see over the other in both cases, skill trees would just outright alleviate the issue of outright deciding one path the job needs to take. Red Mage is just another contender for this, as it screams either hybrid or skill trees with their ability to fit multiple roles. I expect this to be the path that not only Red Mage will be set on, but I expect to see these trees implemented across the board in the game, even on jobs where it seems less necessary like Monk or Ninja. Whenever they are going to add a big system like this though, you need a lot of jobs that contend with the system, or benefit from the system I should say. And so far, Samurai, Blue Mage, and Red Mage, all colors and or jobs that have been dropped in the Rising event would benefit from this system. It seems like the perfect timing for the implementation of a skill tree. Now, I'll be pretty upfront about this. I am not the biggest fan of MMO skill trees in particular. In single-player RPGs or action RPGs, it makes sense, because it's an exciting choice. But in MMOs, it's often a place where just one mistake leads to endless ridicule. It's common that skill trees are filled with some barely useful ones, wrong choices, and honestly, only really feign giving you the belief that you have some sort of choice in your character's power, since players will outright refuse to play with people not following the mathematical norm for performing the best at their role. Sure, skill trees do come in handy when you have PvE versus PvP, but Final Fantasy XIV already has separate PvP skills, although they could absolutely enhance the PvP function on some of the PvE skills with skill trees as a whole, as long as they don't start messing with PvE values just because of PvP. Then I think we'll be okay, and they've shown that they're straying away from that as well. Besides, we're not talking about PvE versus PvP anyway. We're talking about the idea of having multiple viable PvE skill tree built, especially with the Red Mage, the entire topic of the video. I suspect if Square Enix does go down this path, and I think they will, the skill trees are going to be very simple, to the point where it's abundantly obvious when you'd want one skill over the other. As obvious as choosing between kisses on Ninja, for example, or choosing between fists on Monk. I don't expect it to be any more complicated than that, but at least giving you some sort of choice to adjust to situations, especially if one job's utility is more useful on one fight and another job's isn't. The ability to switch utilities would make more jobs viable in a certain spot. As awkward as I find the path of skill trees, I think at this point it's an option they absolutely need to consider, as opposed to adding any new abilities to the overwhelming number of skills jobs have already. Please, if we go to level 70 cap and I get 5 more skills, I'm going to have to question if Square Enix is ultimately just going to design their own mouse, keyboards, and controllers just so people can even fit the buttons on a single controller or whatever you're using, because it's getting pretty crazy. Skill trees would probably help that a little bit. So now that I'm done with my rambling, let's hear your rambling. Anyway, be sure to comment in the comment section of the video below. Let me know what your thoughts are on Red Mage, skill trees, hybrid roles, ideas you have, concepts, anything at all, really. Just discuss it in the comment section of the video below. Be sure to like, favorite, subscribe, and share, and I will see you all in the next video. Until then, take care.